If you want to support the channel, please consider becoming a member today. Members get early access to videos, access to all the stream VODs, and exclusive access to emotes as well. So if you'd like to support the channel, become a member today. So let's talk a little bit about Jordan Peterson. It's been a little while actually since I've talked about him. Now, it's my understanding that he wrote a new book recently. I think he wrote a new book recently. But now, he's starting an online university. That's right, guys. So now we have Prager University, and now we're going to have Jordan Peterson University. So let's watch this and see if we want to go to Jordan Peterson Academy.
Let's discuss what we're doing with Peterson Academy.
We thought, what if we could make getting a degree 95% less expensive? Because that's a pretty funny target. It's like, we're going to undercut you by 95%. And
wait, hold on. Am I going to agree with this? Well, I agree that college is way too expensive. Wait, what? Huh? What's happening?
Offer a better quality experience along the way. Why wouldn't it be good to provide everybody, at least in principle, with access to the best lecturers? And you know, you might think, why should you?
Weren't those all like conservative nut jobs that we just saw? Warren Farrell? Farrell initially came to prominence in the 70s, supporter of second-wave feminism, and has since become a leading figure in the men's right movement. Okay. Okay. I'm pretty sure I recognized... Not that one. Who's
provide everybody.
This guy. Yeah, this guy's totally conspiracy brained, right? Brett Weinstein. Weinstein made several public appearances advocating the use of anti-parasitic drug ivermectin to prevent or treat the disease and downplaying the effectiveness of COVID vaccines. Oh, so he was like a massive misinformation dude. Yeah, that's where I remember him. Yeah, okay, so it's 95 left. Suddenly this makes sense, guys. Jordan Academy, Jordan PP Academy is 95% less expensive because it's 95% less educational. That's why. I knew there was a catch.
Why should you be generally educated? Because otherwise you're going to be a useless, resentful, bitter, pointless, counterproductive lump. And that's not a good strategy.
Excuse me? I work hard to be a counterproductive and resentful lump.
So that's why you think. You think so that your stupid thoughts can die instead of you. If you get to the...
What? Well, what if you're going to the education and it's you're getting more stupid thoughts because I'm being taught by Jordan Peterson and Brett Weinstein and all these other nerds? Then what am I going to do?
Upper echelons of any hierarchy, you'll start encountering people who know a lot about almost everything. And so if you're stupid and you don't know...
That's really quite bullshit. Honestly, the problem is that there are a lot of people who are very educated in certain areas, but then they think that because they're educated in one area that they must be an expert in everything else. And it's a common issue I see happen with people like Jordan Peterson, actually. With people who are professionals. Jordan Peterson does have a good understanding of psychology. He does have some good insights into the workings of humanity and humans and whatever. Like he's not bad at all at that. But the problem is because he is an expert in that area, he thinks very highly of himself and that he must kind of be an expert in other areas as well, even though he has no real expertise in those areas. This happens all the time. So no, you're not gonna, I actually would disagree with that. I don't think you're gonna meet a lot of people that know a lot about everything. I think you're going to meet some people who know a lot about some specific things, and then they think that that means they know a lot about everything.
And so if you're stupid and you don't know anything about anything, they're just going to look at you and listen to you for like 2 seconds and think, well, I don't know where this clunk came from, but, you know, he's not come along for the ride. You need to be enculturated so that you can play with sophisticated people and you can play a sophisticated and productive game. But all...
Why are your eyes closed when you're saying that, Jordan Peterson? Are you like trying to imagine what it would be like for you to be able to be around sophisticated people?
Also, so that you've informed yourself with the greatest ideas of history so that whatever problem you're tackling, you're going to have tools to tackle it with. Once we get it well developed, you'll be able to take...
Why did he show Freud there when saying the... Well, I mean, I guess Freud pioneered some stuff there. Freud was like an insane person, but I guess he still pioneered the field in many ways.
Once we get it well developed, you'll be able to take all these courses, and then, you won't be a complete embarrassment to yourself.
I didn't
Oh man, finally.
enjoy my university experience. The professor wasn't interesting. I was like, I'm pretty sure what they just said wasn't true. I got a psychology professor tell me rats weren't social creatures because they lived in cages. Literally that happened. I was like, what? I'm not traveling 40 minutes to go to this class. And I think it's cruel that people are told.
I just don't understand how you can sit here and whine about being told something wrong and then promo for a university in which the lectures are hosted by people that are literally notorious for being wrong.
They have to go to university, they have to spend $100,000 to $200,000 to get a degree so they can get a job, otherwise they're screwed. It's just a scam, but it bothers me that people are being scammed to learn to not believe in themselves, assume that they can't fix their problems, and then
There's part of the reason that college is so expensive right now is because honestly it is more of a conservative talking point, but they're not wrong when they talk about how the government involvement in colleges is part of the reason that the college prices are so inflamed right now. That's definitely true. Inflated. That's definitely true. Which is again another reason why we need to have a public option for education, so that way if people want to pay their money and go to some big private university or whatever, they can do that. But the government shouldn't be involved, because as soon as the government says, hey, we're going to give loans, okay? So you need to go to college. We're going to give you a loan for $5,000 so you can go to college, okay? Well, as soon as the colleges realize that the government is giving away loans and that the sky is the limit, essentially, they just hike up the price. They're like, okay, actually now it's 40 grand. It's because the government is partially involved, but it's still private ultimately and motivated and incentivized by profit. So we need to get the government completely out of that, let private colleges exist and do their thing, whatever. But then there should also be a public option, kind of like community college, but something a little bit more buffed up, something that has a little bit more affordability as well.
it would be funny if we could blow apart the university system a little bit because it's broken, because of what it did to you. Like, you were alienated out of your job, basically.
You'll be damn fortunate.
Remember that? Man, I remember when Jordan Peterson was popping off, man. But yeah, remember Jordan Peterson melted down about the Bill C-16 or whatever, and then it didn't actually even do nearly as much as he was acting like. He was acting as if this was going to be like the Nazis busting in your door to make sure you're using the right pronouns, when it was really just adding this this group into protected classes, basically, recognizing them as a protected group. And it also protected them from malicious and repeated misgendering, not just like I accidentally used the wrong pronoun thing.
You'll be damn fortunate if we can provide you with a list of people who've graduated. And if you had any sense, you'll employ them preferentially because we did the rigorous screening work. And I know how to do the rigorous screening work because I studied that for like 25 years. A degree from our university will signify high-level conscientiousness and general cognitive ability, and those are very valuable for any employer with a clue. So I think we can just skip the accreditation process and go right to the employers.
We are planning a soft launch in November, and we might be able to change the education system. That's funny. It's weird.
Up yours, woke moralists.
Yeah.
We'll see who cancels who.
Exactly.
That sort of funny?
That kind of funny.
Oh yeah, that kind of funny.
Oh my God. Even when he tries to be self-aware, it's cringe. Oh my God. I like the music. We can change the education system. No. I just think that's like kind of funny, you know? Like, haha, hee hee, ho ho. Dun 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 dun. It's like, holy shit.
And then with my daughter, Michaela, I've started this Peterson Academy, and our plan, we want to drive the cost of a bachelor's degree down to $4,000. We've got 30 professors on board so far. I've been able to identify stellar lecturers from all over the world. They give 4 two-hour lectures on whatever they really want to teach about. The rule is we'll put an audience together for you in the studio. We want you to teach what you love at the edge of your ability. We'll offer that to as many people as we possibly can. We're pursuing accreditation.
This sounds so dangerous, by the way. Just teach whatever you're into. That means like COVID pops up and then you're about to get like 50 lessons about how the vaccine is fake or something.
What we'll do is take 2 or 3 of those 8-hour lectures, bundle them together. That'll give you 1 university credit. And we've developed a good app that adds a social component to it so that people can discuss the lectures while they're watching them and can make social contacts and maybe have meetup groups in different cities. And then we're going to set the grading system in stone. So the grade you'll get for this university will be your performance. So there'll be no grade inflation. We're hoping that a degree from this university will indicate to employers a true level of competence. We're going to roll that out, we hope, in November.
Well, I'm joined again by Jordan Peterson. Jordan, it's been 1 year, can you believe that, since you came and sat in my studio and we had what was an extraordinary interview, got very emotional one part of it. Can you believe it's a year?
Jordan Peterson immediately looks absolutely thrilled to be here.
And what kind of reaction did you have to that interview? Because some of the clips went so big and everyone was having a view about it. What was your reaction?
Well, I enjoyed talking to you, and I'm never that happy really when I become emotional about something that's being discussed, and sometimes for me that's a consequence of not exactly optimal health. It makes me a little bit more emotionally fragile than I'd like to be, but by the same token, I wasn't unhappy with it. I do still hold to my belief that I am addressing a loss, a demoralization among young people, and maybe particularly young men, and that I don't feel that there's anything inappropriate about that. And I have toured all over the world, and I've seen the extent of demoralization among young people, and it is very affecting if you have a clue, as far as I'm concerned. And so we touched on that, and other than that, I was very happy. I was very happy overall with the interview and with the manner in which people received it.
I was too. I had an extraordinary reaction just in the streets, of London and New York, and people coming up to me wanting to talk about it, wanting to know what I thought of you. And it made me realise just how wide your influence is and how important you are to so many people, especially actually young men. How do you feel about that influence and power that you have through that influence over so many young minds?
Well, I hope it's not power, because power is not a good thing. You have to be a fool to want power. If it's influence, that's a good thing. If it's an invitational influence, that's a better thing. If it is the sort of influence that encourages people to stand up on their own and to help them believe that they can do that and that they should do it and that the world is a lesser place if they don't, then that's a good thing. And I do think that that's what's happening. That's the stories I receive from people. And I would say it's daunting, because to understand that the message that you're conveying has played an important part in people's lives is an immense responsibility, and you have to handle that with all due caution. I do everything I can in my lectures and when I meet people, when I talk to people, to be pleased as I can possibly be that they're positively affected by what I've been doing. And I would also say, I'd like to distinguish it too. I don't like to think in some ways that it's what I've been doing. I'm an educated clinical psychologist, and the reason that the words that I'm using and the stories I'm telling are having an effect is because they're deeply grounded in a solid scientific tradition and also in a solid philosophical, psychological, and theological tradition. And insofar as the message that I'm conveying has potency, it's because of its fundamental grounding in those underlying traditions rather than...
Oh my God, remember how he always talks so long-winded with so many words? Jesus.
Something that is directly a consequence of me or should be attributed to me. And I know the difference between those two things, And so I'm careful to try to make sure that I don't confuse the messenger with the message, let's say.
Right. I interviewed Steven Pinker recently, and he'd always said for years that we've never had it so good as a planet, that statistically, whether it was poverty or health or age or whatever it may be, that on almost every recordable metric, this is the best time to ever be alive. And I asked him whether post the pandemic, the war in Ukraine, the cost of living crisis around the world, did he still feel that held true? And he said yes, that actually despite that, this is the best time actually in many ways to ever be alive. When I read your Twitter feed, which I find fascinating, exciting, challenging, combative, but often quite furious, I get a sense of somebody quite angry with the state of the world. Is that a fair reflection of your state of mind about the world? If so, why?
Well, we've swapped adventure for security. And Pinker rightly points to the fact that on the grounds of material security as well, satiety, satisfaction, let's say, we're doing better than we ever have, but people aren't built for infantile...
I've said this before, that he's not terrible when talking about psychology, because he's a professional in that regard, but I think sometimes when he tries to talk about the other stuff, when it's like trying to talk about Marxism and all that shit, it really quickly becomes apparent that this guy seems to believe that because he is an expert in one field, that makes him an expert in other fields as well. It's a common thing that happens to people. It happens to YouTubers too. Where because you've had a lot of success with video creation, maybe you can try doing this and you'll be successful there too. And sometimes people who are professionals tend to actually fall into that, where because they're a professional in one regard, they start acting like they are a professional on everything.
They're built for truthful adventure, as far as I'm concerned. And so, to the degree that we've purchased security and safety at the cost of existential adventure, that is not an advance. Now, I think, being optimistic like Pinker, that we could have an adventure. We could have our cake and eat it too. Let's put it that way. We could make the world an abundant place, and there would still be room for an adventure for everyone. But I think the existential or the Enlightenment types like Pinker, they make a mistake when they presume that mere material well-being is sufficient to provide people with the meaning that's necessary to offset the fundamental existential uncertainty of their lives. You know, we're mortal creatures, and we're prone to decay and to the loss of everything that we have, even if we're rich. And you need a meaning that offsets that. And I don't think the Enlightenment types have done it.
God, I do understand what he's saying. Like he uses a lot of words and takes forever, but there's ways he could have said, you know, I think right now materialistically the world is better than it's ever been, but I also think that material things are not always enough to satisfy people internally and to satisfy some of the deeper questions, the more existential questions that we don't really even have the answers to. So I think that people need to find comfort and peace and well-being in a way from something deeper within, not just material benefits. He literally could have put it that way, and it would have made just as much sense and been way quicker. It takes so slow to get there, and it's on 1.5 speed too.
We're mortal creatures, and we're prone to decay and to the loss of everything that we have, even if we're rich. And you need a meaning that offsets that. And I don't think the Enlightenment types have done a good job of addressing that at all. They don't really understand, or they refuse to understand, the depth of that spiritual longing. Am I angry?
The depth of that spiritual longing, I think what you're talking about is that people have a desire internally to be fulfilled in ways that are, again, you can't be fulfilled with material things. You can have a really big house and a really nice house and everything you want, but if you're there alone, you might not be fulfilled, right? Of course, this isn't spiritual. This is just a deeper level of consciousness that humans tend to experience. Like, this isn't anything to do with God. And then what did he say before? Oh, right, I just threw up. Sorry, no, I'm just kidding. The enlightened people haven't done a good job at addressing the longing people have for meaning and fulfillment. That's because the Enlightenment doesn't give you an answer. That's because the Enlightenment types are usually, at least my opinion is, you find your own meaning, which maybe that can be a little scarier at times. Maybe that can be more stressful at times. But you know what? I think that's a hell of a lot better than, well, God says this is your meaning. Or worse, your meaning from God is to just worship him. So I don't think that you guys, the religious traditional side or whatever, has offered a very good alternative either. At the end of the day, you decide your own meaning. And it's funny because even the religious people that say, like, our meaning is to worship God, they found that at some point or another in their life where they then decided that they were going to commit to that as their meaning. They still decided for that to be their meaning in a way.
Am I angry? No, I wouldn't say precisely so. I'm upset at many things that I see. I think the net zero move is a travesty in 5 different dimensions. I'm absolutely appalled that the globalist utopian elitists would sacrifice the poor to save the planet, especially when there's no evidence whatsoever that they're actually effectively saving the planet, and we could take Germany as a case in point there, and I would say the UK to some degree. But I'm fundamentally optimistic. I think that human beings can solve any problem that's set in front of them. And this is also another place where I think the apocalyptic utopians have got something seriously wrong. Like, they basically take a zero-sum approach to economic analysis of the world. We have finite resources. There's only room for a certain number of people. And so, of course, that begs the question of what in your world you're going to do with all those excess people. And we have to move towards degrowth, or there's going to be an apocalypse. And I think everything about that set of presuppositions is wrong. We don't live in a zero-sum universe. The apocalyptic outcome that everyone's predicting isn't necessary. And the more fundamental truth of the matter is that if people adopt subsidiary responsibility, and we could get into what that means, and we organize our social hierarchies effectively and generously, we could make the desert bloom. We can make much out of virtually nothing. And human beings have that capacity because we can transform cognitively. And there's no reason to assume it.
So zero sum by definition relating to or denoting a situation in which whatever is gained by one side is lost by the other. When we're talking about resources, yeah, there's limited resources. It is to a degree zero sum.
We couldn't have more than enough for everyone. Now that would mean those who want more for themselves than for other people would have to let go of that essentially power-mad.
Based socialist Jordan Peterson? What the what is going on?
Desire, and be willing to share and be willing to raise the poor out of poverty. And of course, doing so decreases the gap between rich and poor, and that's very annoying if you're narcissistic and rich.
You spoke last night, actually, at the Buckley Institute in New York.
Based Jordan
and you said something really
Peterson?
interesting to me. How do you have the adventure of your life, you asked the people there, including many students. And your answer was, tell the truth. And then it's so bloody interesting and engaging and exciting that it justifies the misery of your existence. What can I tell you? There are great books. Read them, ignore your professors. I did love that, because actually there is a real power, isn't there, to the truth, particularly in this era, I think, where there's so much untruth and disinformation flying around. Actually being true to yourself is probably the most powerful thing you can be, I think.
Well, you can think about that in two ways. I mean, the first way is, who are you if you lie? Now, I would say, well, you're false if you lie. That seems self-evident. If you're false when you lie, then who are you? You're not you. And so then whatever happens to you when you lie, that isn't happening to you. And the theological view of that is that whatever happens to you when you lie is happening to the spirit of the lie, right? And the spirit of the lie, classically speaking, is a demonic spirit. And so whatever success you accrue as a consequence of lying isn't your success. It accrues to the glory of the spirit who lies. And that's a very bad idea. But then as well, the adventurous element of the truth.
What? He was actually making some good points there and sounding kind of interesting. I sort of agreed with him that, yeah, it is interesting that when you lie, you're not being true to yourself. So it's the things that you're getting and achieving are not achieved honestly. And it's like a version of yourself that's false is actually getting that. I think that was a really interesting insight. He was going somewhere so interesting, and then he just blew it. No. Jordan, you were doing good, pal.
Is associated with the following idea. I mean, I could come on this interview, let's say, and I could have been thinking this morning, well, what in the world do I want to accomplish if I get to talk to Piers Morgan? I'm going to talk to several million people. How can I grow my brand? How can I use this opportunity to ensure that people feel better about me or admire me more, or something hypothetically self-serving, eh? But it's not self-serving exactly. It would serve a very narrow part of myself. It would serve the narcissistic, self-aggrandizing, whim-oriented, hedonistic element of myself, and maybe I would confuse that with myself, but that would be foolish. And then maybe I would get what I aimed at, and I'd have an impressive conversation with Piers Morgan, and that would redound temporary to my glory, and I would walk away satisfied. But the problem with that is it's a stupid goal. And if I attained it, that would just make me successful at being foolish and narcissistic. And the consequence of doing that repeatedly would be that I would become more and more foolish and narcissistic. And there's no success in that. Even if I got rich doing that, I'd be rich and pathetic. And that's not helpful. And alternatively, I could come on here and I could just try to say what I believe to be the case. And then that would be me. And it would be the truth.
But what really is success? What is success?
And then I would be aligned with reality, which seems like a good idea, you know, because if it's you against reality, like, good luck to you. But there's more to it, Piers, because, see, if I want to come onto your program, say, and just say what I think, I have to throw caution to the wind. I can't be calculating the outcome. I can't be, like, what would you say, referring to an opinion poll and telling people what they want to hear. I just have to lay it on the line. And to do that, I have to let go of the outcome. But the cool thing, here's the cool thing. If you let go of the outcome, you don't know what's going to happen. And then that's so interesting, really, that it's almost unbearable. And that is definitely something so interesting that it's almost unbearable. That's an adventure. And then you get to have an adventure. And then you think, wow, well, this is so interesting. Maybe it's worth sticking around for and trudging through the misery just to see how it ends. And I do believe that you capture that in a relationship with the truth.
Yes.
I truly believe that.
No,
I don't mean that mystically even.
I agree. And what's fascinating, actually, is that whenever I've interviewed you or done your podcast, and I'm feeling it again now, I agree with so much of what
I like what Jordan Peterson's saying there, actually. I think he's making a really good point. And I think that's, again, I've talked about how, like, there's more than just, like, telling your truth. I don't think that's, like, enough, because what if your truth is wrong or bad or bigoted or whatever? But I do agree with him that, yes, when you are staying true to yourself, that does open the door for more potential and for more life satisfaction. I mean, I can tell you, as at least from my own experience, as being someone who at one point was very unsure of himself, not too sure about my opinions, very insecure, felt vulnerable most of the time, that kind of shit, to gradually reaching a place in which I'm not only more comfortable in my politics, but I also am comfortable and confident enough to like debate them and stand up for what I believe. I can tell you right now, there is absolutely a sense of fulfillment that comes with that, and a sense of grounding and trust you have in yourself. Like, I don't think I'm always right, but I still, like, I mean, you know, obviously I just died in Fortnite. So obviously, it doesn't mean you think you're always right, nor should you, but it's that I've reached a point where sometimes I feel again that I can trust my own insights without feeling the need to check with something else or, you know, compare it against this or that. You know what I mean? Like, so I agree with him so far with what he's saying about staying true to yourself and the adventure. He puts it adventure. That's kind of cheesy sounding in my opinion, but I definitely think that, yeah, when you're true to yourself, even if you are in drama because of that, there's something different with being in drama for some reason just because it's some petty dumb shit, or you're in drama because you're not willing to apologize for something that you truly believe, or that you're standing up for what you believe or whatever. That's obviously going to lead to more confidence in yourself as well.
What you say, but that's not really the point. I believe that you come from a place of authenticity. And I think there are other people like that. Joe Rogan is another one that I watch him. Mm-hmm. I don't always agree with him, but I always feel he's authentic in a different way and to a lesser degree. But I think the point's the same. Someone like Andrew Tate, I can see why he resonates so much with young men in particular, because much of what he says, they feel fills a void in their lives where they feel oppressed as a group of people, and he gives them a sense of empowerment. So I get that. And it's interesting.
Really? Men are claiming to be oppressed when gamers are still out there? My God.
I cite the three of you because Gavin Newsom, who's the governor of California and many think may end up being the Democrat nominee for the presidency next year, he said this. He said, I had a very serious conversation with my eldest daughter about the chat bots on Snapchat. I really worry about the misinformation, disinformation about what's happening with our country. But I really worry about these micro cults that my kids are in. I say micro cults because I don't know if there's a better way to describe it. My son is asking me about Andrew Tate, Jordan Peterson, and then immediately he's talking about Joe Rogan. And I'm like, here it is, the pathway. And when I read that, I sort of laughed because I thought, what pathway do you think that is?
Well, that statement was unconsciously comical in 4 dimensions, which is pretty remarkable achievement as far as I'm concerned. I mean, first of all, anybody who talks about misinformation and disinformation, that the misinformation and disinformation that other people are spreading, is like they immediately invalidate themselves as a serious observer in my viewpoint, because they're basically arbitrary censors. I mean, it's not as if we have some stellar and completely omniscient manner of distinguishing truth from falsehood, which is why we have free speech, so we can hash things out. And if
What? Are you kidding me right now? You're unironically making the argument that because there's no objective truth, that means that literally any truth can just be true. You're actually making like the deranged, unhinged argument right now. There doesn't have to be objective truth, but there are ways to determine certain things, or ways to determine if some things are true or not. And if you are saying things that are not true, and we can verify that and check that, then you are in fact spreading misinformation.
people are foolish enough to believe that there's some straightforward way of identifying the purveyors of mis and disinformation, which is what the UN insists upon now, then they are in fact identifying themselves as the prime purveyors of such falsehood, I would say.
I would love to talk to Jordan Peterson about this. Holy shit, does he think there's any such thing as truth at all? Does he think that even if we're going to take the route that truth is ultimately subjective, then does he still believe that there is such a thing as a universal subjective truth? Like, does he even believe that? You don't just throw your hands up and be like, well, there is, philosophically speaking, according to the 4th dimensions of human experience, well, no real philosophical, omniscient way of determining what is and is not, in fact, actually truth, you see. Because what is and is not truth is really something that stems from within, based on a metaphysical sense. Just stop. If someone says the vaccine is wrong, and someone says the vaccine it doesn't work, and someone says it does, then you have to do studies and you do tests to determine who is telling the truth. And then if someone else keeps on saying it doesn't work, even though we have determined that it does in fact work, they are now not telling the truth.
The micro comment, that's just ridiculously funny, because if you are daft enough to think that Joe Rogan is a micro cult, you live in 1995. Joe Rogan is the most powerful journalist who's ever lived by an order of magnitude. And if you don't know that, you're just not in you're not in the modern world. And so young people are in the modern world, and they know that Joe Rogan isn't a micro cult, and Gavin Newsom might.
Wait, what? He's not a journalist. He's one of the most, he's very influential, you could say. That would be true.
he's anachronistic enough to be deluded. So that's pretty damn funny. And then the next part that's funny is that maybe if Newsom had a clue, he'd be curious about why his own children are interested in these microcults and exactly what it is about, let's say, Tate and Rogan and I that are grouped together, even though it's a strange grouping. I mean, I'm not particularly happy to be grouped with Andrew Tate because I think that there's some elements about what he does that are quite reprehensible, but that we could certainly talk about that. And so, there should be some curiosity on Newsom's front, trying to figure out why it is that this degree of popularity exists. And then the pathway comment is also extremely comical. I tweeted out after that, it's like, well, yeah, Gavin, you better be careful. We're coming for your children there, buddy. We're going to turn your girls into women and your boys into men. And I know that's a dreadful proposition, but, well, it's just so preposterous. I don't know who he thinks he is in the most fundamental sense, and that's really something crucial since he's likely going to run for president.
Right.
And I don't know what world he thinks he lives in, but he certainly has virtually zero curiosity. And I should point out as well, Piers, I have invited many, 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 many Democrats onto my podcast. And one has agreed, and that's going to be broadcast soon. But for years I've worked, and I have very many contacts with Democrats, by the way. They're all terrified to come on my podcast. They won't talk to me. And so if it is a microcult, at least half the reason for that is that
the pathway comment is kind of justified, although I don't think grouping Rogan in there is very fair because Rogan's pretty centrist. I mean, yeah, I know he has like right-leaning stuff on some things, but like, come on. If Rogan is like the alt-right pipeline, then yeah, I think that you're a little far gone there, honestly. But, I mean, Andrew Tate is setting you up for very bad ideas. We just saw the clip, right, where Sneako's fans came up to him and were saying all sorts of things about how gay people should die and how they don't like women or something. It was disgusting. Like, this kind of shit does lead to a sense of thinking or a type of thinking. And then it pushes you towards other people that share those opinions or are more extreme. That's what they mean by the path.